to invite ever-wise John Boland. And if you don't mind, John, because he made a fantastic joke to me before the session. John is a professor of environmental mathematics at University of South Australia. And of course, like, how long you been at University of South Australia, John? And he tells me, before time. And I'll let him finish the joke on that one. However, he specializes in finding solutions to real-world problems in renewable energy supply, water cycle management, and other fields, including energy-efficient housing. And he's going to give us a little bit of insight into what are some quick fixes for better living that might be also sustainable. Please welcome John.
Yes, so I said before time began because I've been at UniSA before it was a university. Okay, so we've heard about, Ken has told you about my professional sort of interest in this area, but also personally, my wife and I have retrofitted 2 houses, and we've learned a lot through those processes. Now, I'm not going to talk about complete retrofitting, just quick bits that we've learned along the way as well, okay? Later on, somebody else will talk about a full retrofit, and of course, Ben was talking about some major things you can do as well. Now, the other reason you should possibly take some of the advice is that, and I've got some flyers of this, we were on Gardening Australia on November 11, and why that's important in this feature is because of the fact that it was all about integration of house and garden. And often when people talk about energy efficient housing, they forget that garden aspect, which is so important to integrate the two. Now, I'll also start by showing something that is a very poor example of how one should design things. This is a new house in our street, and you can see,
It's not mine.
no, it's not yours. Black roof, black garage door, black driveway, and which way is that facing? West. So on a hot summer's afternoon, we're going to get huge heat impact into the house, and that's not going to just affect the people there, it's also going to affect the whole neighborhood, because they'll have to put on their aircon super big and fast and blow hot air out into the neighborhood as well. Okay? So, seeing we're talking about which way things face and the climate and stuff like this, let's talk a bit more. One of the things we learned with the retrofitting was watch where does the sun rise and set at different times of the year. So when you're designing shading, you can know something about that. Also, where do the winds come from on your block? Okay, so you can also design some vegetation to not only help the shading of the house, etc., but also try to cut down hot summer winds and cold winter winds. Okay, and by the way, in that sort of regard, I've got on this flyer, there's also reference to a paper by a PhD student of mine and I about how to strategically place a few trees around your house to give quite a bit of benefit. Because even though my wife and I live in a jungle and don't need to have an air conditioner or anything like that, most people will not want to maintain that type of intense garden, okay? But you can actually strategically place things to help out a lot. Also for shading, you can use things like roll-down shutter blinds. I think there's somebody here with something like that. I'm not that convinced of, or I'm not too sure about their worth in some respects, because there's not a room for the breezes to take away some of the heat as well. I would prefer something that people don't have very much anymore, and that's awnings. So we have awnings on our windows on the north and west walls, designed specifically, because I'm a mathematician, I can do this sort of thing, so that it blocks the sun off the window on midday on January 31st. Why is that? Because when is the sun highest in the sky? Pretty soon, December 21st, 22nd. But when is the hottest time of the year on average? Near the end of January. Okay, so that's when I wanted to shield the windows. Now, other aspects in the quick fix area. Ben talked about airtight houses. That's half the story to my mind. Because what you want to do is block the air drafts at the times when you want to block them. But also, one thing that's often not thought about is providing enough ventilation to actually help you as well. For instance, especially Campbelltown, where we live in Felixstowe, we get great summer afternoon and evening breezes. Open up your house to let the breeze cool the house without any sort of mechanical means, okay? Now, there's one thing that is worrisome to some people. If I open up the house, what about security? Well, a great investment is security, windows, and or doors, okay? So you can ventilate the house and still feel safe, okay? So think about it in those ways. Quick fixes in terms of making it more airtight in winter in particular, and yeah, sometimes in summer, because you don't want that coolth being overcome with the heat coming in summertime as well through the gaps and everything like this. You know, you can have draft excluders, even that old favorite door snakes, you know. And in fact, the door snakes are probably used quite well in wintertime between rooms as well, because there's not much sense heating a room and then having all the heat blow under the door into the next room where there's nobody in there, okay? So, you know, little quick fixes. Ben stole some of my thunder, as I was going to say, but it's still valid. If ceiling insulation, because, you know, he talked about wall insulation as well, that's quite difficult often with a pre-existing house, okay? But ceiling insulation is one of the best investments, bang for your buck, that you can make in a house if your house doesn't have proper ceiling insulation. Okay? It's cheap and really beneficial. Another thing that helps in summertime is fans. Ceiling fans or floor fans, even misting fans. These are very, very useful and use almost no energy. Last night was quite a warm night, right? Had a ceiling fan on, and I checked on an app that I've got. It was using 0.1 kilowatt. Okay? What does an aircon use? 2, 3 kilowatts. Yeah, good, I'm almost there.
Oh, no, sorry. 5 kilowatts.
Oh, 5 kilowatts. Oh, sorry. See, not owning an air conditioner, I don't know these things. Okay, now, the other thing that's very important, and I've sort of alluded to it a little bit, but not as much as I should, is that, just think of it, you can have an 8-star house and still use lots of energy and be uncomfortable if you use it improperly. I've seen people have a 2-star house, operate it properly, and they're still comfortable and don't use a lot of energy. Okay? So, a house you can say is inert, but by operating properly, you can make it into a home. And so when I talk about operation, I talked about, you know, the idea of looking where the winds come from before you do things and all that sort of stuff, and where the sun rises and sets at different times of the year. But also, even think of it this way. I mean, it's cool today and cool for the next couple of days, but say, for instance, you knew that Monday was going to be incredibly hot. How should you prepare for that? Okay, tonight, you do that ventilation. Cool down the house as much as possible. Tomorrow night, the same thing. Okay? Also think, okay, Monday, going to be really hot. Ooh, if I cook inside, I'm going to heat up the house even more. Why don't I plan to have a barbecue or cook today something and then microwave it on Monday? That sort of thing. So plan ahead. Think of these sorts of things. And to be perfectly honest, things like, there's all sorts of little other aspects like wearing the proper clothing to suit the times of year, you know, shorts in summer, jumpers in winter, that sort of stuff. You know, I come originally from North America, as you might have noticed, from Canada, and there was always an idea there that in the middle of winter you might have your house heated to 25 degrees and walk around in shorts and a singlet and everything. I think, no, let's not do that. So basically, I think wrapping up, don't forget, you got to operate the house, watch the weather, try to plan ahead, all those sorts of things. So that's another little quick fix, which is really good. And as I say, if you want one of these leaflets about gardening Australia, etc., I've got quite a few, and so does my wife. So we'll talk later.